Hello, and welcome everyone. I'm Chris Alexander, Executive Director of the Office of Cannabis Management. It's great to be here with all of you, recognizing that we have a majority of board members present or participating virtually. I'm pleased to call to order another meeting of the Cannabis Advisory Board, and to welcome all of you who are participating in person or via real-time live stream. As always, this meeting will be recorded, and the transcript will be available to the public on the Office of Cannabis Management's websites, cannabis.ny.gov. Additional information on Cannabis Advisory Board meetings is also available on the OCM website. Pending the upcoming election of a CAB chairperson and vice chairperson, today's meeting will be facilitated by CAB member Dr. Junella Chin. Dr. Chin is an integrative medicine specialist with over 15 years of experience working at the intersection of medicine and cannabis. We thank you, Dr. Chin, for help with today's meeting.
Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. Before moving in today's agenda, we will first conduct a public hearing to consider proposed resolution number 2022-01, which authorizes members of the advisory board to attend meetings remotely from private locations under extraordinary circumstances in compliance with open meetings law. This hearing is separate from the board meeting itself and will include an opportunity for the public to comment on the proposed resolution. Board members will not be able to answer any questions and will not respond directly to comments from the public. By way of explanation, under the open meeting law, public bodies can allow members to attend meetings by video conference from locations that are not open to the public under what the law calls extraordinary circumstances. Such circumstances include disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor that keeps a board member from physically attending a meeting. With this proposed resolution and related written procedure, a board member will be allowed to participate in a meeting via video conference from a private location under extraordinary circumstances. We are now going to open the floor to any member of the public in attendance today who would like to offer comments or testimony related to resolution number 2022-01. This is to comment only on the resolution at hand. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the resolution? Hearing no comments to the proposed resolution, we will now conclude the public hearing. Before we vote on this resolution, I want to ask my fellow board members if they would like to have any discussion on the proposed resolution or process. May I please have a motion to approve resolution number 2022-01, which authorizes members of the Cannabis Advisory Board to attend meetings by video conference from private locations under extraordinary circumstances and adopt the related board procedure.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? All opposed? The motion to approve resolution number 2022-01, a resolution to authorize Cannabis Advisory Board members to attend meetings by video conference from private locations under extraordinary circumstances and adopt the related procedure carries. I will now turn it back to OCM's Executive Director to take us through today's agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. Today you'll hear some updates from the office, a brief presentation on our proposed cannabis regulation package, and learn more about next steps for this advisory board. We want to take a few moments first to reintroduce the advisory board to the public and its members to one another. As you know, this board is created in the MRTA. There, it lays out not only the duties and structures of the board, but a vision of a collaborative, interdisciplinary group of experts helping to shape cannabis policy and outcomes across New York State. Beyond its eventual role governing and administering the New York State Community Grants Reinvestment Fund, the CAB is also tasked with lending its expertise and advice to the office and Cannabis Control Board on a wide range of issues related to medical cannabis, adult use cannabis, and cannabinoid hemp. To that end, the Governor's Office, along with the New York State Senate and Assembly, have worked to create an advisory board with diverse experience spanning the state. We're going to take a short moment to reintroduce all of the CAB members who are able to join us today. First, we'll begin with the voting members. When I say your name, please feel free to say hello to the public. Alejandro Alvarez.
Hello, everyone. Alejandro Alvarez. Again, happy to be here. Not so nervous like the first time. See, well, I messed up again. But again, very happy to be here and looking forward to future meetings and all the great things I'm going to be able to accomplish.
Thank you. Joe Bellick. Good morning. Dr. Janella Chen.
Good morning.
Ebro Darden.
Good morning, everyone.
Alan Gandelman.
Good morning.
Nikki Cateman.
Good morning, all.
Sarah Ravenhall.
Good morning.
Chandra Redfern. In addition to the members joining us today, the Arthur A. Duncan, Gary Johnson, and Armando Rosado are also members of the advisory board, but were unable to join us today. Oh, Armando's here. How you doing, Armando? Welcome. Finally, we are so excited to be joined today by a new member to our CAB, Mark Ramirez. Mark was appointed following our first meeting in June. Mark, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself and quickly share why you're excited to be part of the Cannabis Advisory Board?
Good morning. My name is Mark Ramirez. I'm born and raised in New York City. I'm a public defender in the Bronx now. I started law school kind of late in life because at a young age I fell victim to the war on drugs and spent a substantial time in prison. I came out, finished college, went to law school, and now I work as a public defender in the Bronx, and I'm trying to help these same communities that we're trying to make whole through this legislation here. So they created this board. So I'm excited about what we can do and what we're going to do, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you and getting to know all of you a lot better. And I'm hoping to speak to more of you, all of you, more afterwards. This is a very short time. I don't want to take a lot of time introducing myself, but thank you for this opportunity, and I thank the governor for appointing me. And again, I look forward to working with all of you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Next, we'll take a few moments to introduce our ex officio members. When I say your name, please feel free to say hello. Alan Clear from New York State Department of Health.
Yeah, hi. I'm not a doctor. No matter how many times I say it.
Thank you, Alan. We'll clarify that on the slide. Attending on behalf of Dr. Chinazo Cunningham is Mary Brewster from the New York State Office of Addiction Services and Supports.
Hi, everyone. Mary Brewster. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Harm Reduction. Really excited to be here.
Happy to have you. Kathleen DiCataldo from the New York State Education Department.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I'm the Assistant Commissioner in the Office of Student Support Services at SED.
Awesome. Dareth Glantz from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Good morning, Dareth Glantz, Deputy Commissioner for Environmental Remediation and Materials Management with the DEC. Happy to be here.
Senator Ruth Hassel Thompson from New York State Division of Homes and Community Renewal. I didn't see her. She's not joining. Suzanne Miles Gustav from New York State Office of Children and Family Services.
Good morning, all. Thank you so much for having me. Sorry I can't be there in person, but always great to see you all. Looking forward to the work.
And Scott Weiner from New York State Department of Ag and Markets.
Good morning.
All right, Scott. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll now hear from OCM's ethics attorney, Aaron Lynch, who you've all met. We'll meet again for a brief reminder of ethical considerations and recently shared ethics guidance.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Alexander. Nice to see you all. It's much better than on our screen as before. So great to see you. I really appreciate the opportunity to just touch base with you all. I'm hoping that we can continue a dialogue outside of the board meeting. And I just want to let you know that I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Now is a good time just to sort of re-up our discussion that we've had in the past about potential conflicts of interest. So as you get the work going in terms of reviewing and commenting on the proposed regulations, I welcome you to reach out to me if you have any questions about whether or not you want to submit comments. And typically that's based on what the work is that you do outside of the board. So I put some information up on the slide if that helps to kind of give you some framework. One of the things that we really should be thinking about as board members is what we do outside of our board role and whether or not that overlaps with the work that you do here. So you just want to keep in mind that if you are asked to review a particular regulation and comment on it, that just want to keep in mind if your private interests or the work you do outside of the board is impacted by that regulation, that's something that you would want to give me a call about. Okay, so and in case you didn't get a chance to look at it, I did issue guidance a few weeks ago. It was in an email form. It was like a one-page document for all of you to look at. That talks about communications with OCM folks. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know. And then at the end of the slide, I just had up here best practice, because in ethics, we love to say best practices. So for all of you, just as like a general framework, and this applies to voting members only, of course. So if you have a potential conflict of interest or have questions about one, please disclose it. Reach out to me. My email is in the board material. And we want to think about recusing from any participation, discussion, and voting on any matter that your private interest would be impacted or affected by. Okay, so thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and nice to see you all again.
All right. Thank you, Erin. And I really implore each of you to use Erin as a resource. This work that we're doing now is super important. Really want your expertise to shine through as we get some comments on these regulations. But the next stage of things, the allocation of significant resources to communities across the state. I know that practice of reaching out, checking in with the Ethics Council is going to be really helpful for us down the road. So I want to share some updates on the work of the office since our last meeting in June before we get to the regs. So first announced in March, the Seeding Opportunity Initiative is a series of conditional licenses designed by OCM to build a strong cannabis supply chain in New York State. Designed to take advantage of the growing season and kickstart the growth of the New York State cannabis industry, this work began in February with the launch of the first adult use conditional cultivator license application. This time limited license was designed to allow existing New York State licensed hemp farmers to begin growing cannabis for the first adult use sales. In June of 2022, the office followed that up with the adult use conditional processor application and license. Since launching both conditional license applications, the Cannabis Control Board has issued licenses to nearly 300 conditional cultivators and over 30 processors. This has allowed family farmers across New York to grow and harvest the first adult use cannabis in New York, and our processors to begin work transforming that harvest into a wide variety of products that will be tested and sold to New York's consumers. One of the most exciting and unique aspects of the conditional license structure was the Conditional Adult Use Retail Dispensary, or CARD license. Designed to prioritize those individuals most harmed by cannabis prohibition, only two specific groups of applicants were eligible. The first group were individuals who have a cannabis conviction or family members of those with a conviction, what we call justice involved, who have also demonstrated experience operating a successful business. The other group were nonprofit organizations that have a history of helping the recently incarcerated re-enter society successfully, including on-site job training programs. Throughout the summer of 2022, OCM staff facilitated a comprehensive outreach and community engagement initiative designed to spread the word about the CARD application, with a particular focus on engaging eligible applicants, especially from those communities most disproportionately impacted by prohibition. OCM staff facilitated nearly 20 virtual and in-person sessions to over 1,700 individuals. By the end of the application period on September 26, OCM had received over 900 applications to operate dispensaries awarded through the card license. After initial application review process, 36 card applicants were recommended for the first round of preliminary licensure by the Cannabis Control Board. These applicants represent the types of individuals and organizations that the MRTA envisioned as the bedrock of our industry. And it's incredible to see how the team here has worked so hard to bring this program to life. On November 21st, the Control Board, in issuing the licenses, that breakdown included 28 qualifying business applicants and 8 nonprofit organizations. These licenses, reminder, represent only the first phase of card awards. There are more licenses under review, and we will continue to issue licenses through the program on a rolling basis. Unlike their qualifying business counterparts, nonprofit organizations applying for card are able to bring their own location rather than waiting to be matched with a dispensary location identified and outfitted by our partners at DASNY. As you can see, our successful nonprofit applicants come from across New York State and represent a range of different organization types. We look forward to working closely with these organizations as they enter the cannabis market and use the income generated to support their work and mission. For the qualifying businesses, card licensees, you'll see them broken down into regional groups. Each applicant was asked to identify a preferred region of New York State in which they would like to operate a dispensary. The applicants you see listed today represent the highest scoring applicants from a given region who are able to submit all required application materials. To date, no region has reached the maximum number of licenses awarded in their respective area, and the Control Board will be issuing additional licenses at subsequent meetings. Another important update that was shared at our recent Control Board meeting was the announcement that the delivery authorization provided to our card qualifying business licensees will take effect quickly. Until qualifying business licenses are matched with a DASNY location, the office will allow these licensees to fulfill delivery orders from a location obtained by the licensee that has been approved by the office. Licensees are still subject to all applicable rules and retail guidance and true parties of interest guidance. The office will soon be providing additional guidance specific to card delivery soon so that our licensees can get started. Now I'm going to turn it over to OCM's Chief Equity Officer, Damian Fagan, to provide some updates on recent equity initiatives here at OCM.
Thank you, Chris. Today I am pleased to share with the Cannabis Advisory Board a few updates on the work of the equity team here at OCM. Since joining the office 6 months ago, almost to the day, the equity team has continued to build and grow, onboarding new staff, establishing workflows, and allowing us to begin building the foundation of the equitable cannabis industry New York was promised. The equity team plays a critical role in all of the work at OCM. Our staff sit on every meeting, from providing input and guidance on the development of the card application to overseeing the regulatory initiatives necessary to achieve the ambitious goals of the MRTA. So far, the equity team has overseen a wide range of activities, including direct engagement with existing legacy operators, who we have found to be nothing if not resilient and full of untapped potential. It will come as no surprise to you that our state is widely coveted as potentially one of the most lucrative legal markets nationwide. And that's because thousands of working class New Yorkers risked everything to lay the foundation of a sophisticated consumer marketplace. Our future licensees will have them to thank for their low customer acquisition costs. We will continue building relationships and establishing trust with this legacy community with the intention of bringing their experience and knowledge into the legal market. Our team is also preparing to launch our Cannabis Compliance Training and Mentorship Program, a 10-week webinar series aimed at growing and diversifying the pipeline of farmers and processors in the legal market. Recently, we completed the review of over 600 fully narrative-based applications from some of the most uniquely qualified horticulturalists and entrepreneurs in the country. Thank you to our tireless team and our partners at the Department of Labor for scoring, auditing, and reading their incredible stories. Lastly, over the past few months, the equity team has hosted over a dozen community outreach listening sessions with key stakeholders from Syracuse to Harlem. including service-disabled veterans, distressed farmers, MWBEs, representatives from communities disproportionately impacted, and out-of-state equity operators. The goal of these sessions is to uplift the lived experiences of New York's equity stakeholders and those organizations who have been working on cannabis equity for many years. The feedback we have received will inform the social and economic equity plan as outlined in the cannabis law. The C plan, as we call it, will outline the regulations, policies, programs, and strategic economic development initiatives of the state's equity efforts in the years to come. Turn it back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Damien. And in the same effort of recognizing our partners across the state, I want to apologize, Russell Oliver. We missed you. Thanks for being here from the Department of Labor and all the agency partners who've helped with this incredible lift of bringing this program to life. I'll turn it over back to you, Dr. Chin.
Thank you, Chris and Damien, for those updates on the work of the OCM. Right now, I want to open the floor to any CAB members who wish to make a statement or a comment. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand, and I will call on members in the order that you raise your hand. We ask that you keep comments related to the topics just covered. Now, do we have a member who wishes to comment? Yes, Ebro?
Yeah. That was great information. In this, I know we're early, very early in the stages of this, but how much transparency will the public have to the diversity of these businesses, and will we be providing that diversity, or will the public be expected to go do that research themselves?
Absolutely, the public will have full transparency. We are, per the statute, required to report on not just the licensees and the demographics that they represent, but also on the applicants, right, of all folks who are even applying to seek licensure. So all of that will be reported on. It's unclear if we'll have it in the annual report or moving forward, but as we close out this licensing window and this first licensing, we'll absolutely report on demographics of what we have. And so we've already started to collect some of that information. We don't have all of it, but we're going to roll it out as quickly as we can.
I'll just add that we get demographic information from everyone who attends our meetings, applies for licenses, asks questions. We want to know everything, and we're going to be very transparent with that data.
Just a question on the mentorship program. Curious on how that's coming along, if you've received applications, and how, awarding those applications of who's going to be in that program, and when is it looking like it's going to roll out?
Yeah, absolutely. We completed the review of all the applications. They're scored, they're audited. We're going to start interviewing some select applicants, but we've selected the top 250 of the 620 or so that applied. They'll be getting notices next week, middle of next week, about that, and we hope to start the program middle of January.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your comments. Now let's turn it back to Mr. Alexander to continue.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Chin. Thanks for those comments. The next part of our agenda, we're going to start talking about the regulations. I want to turn it over to OCM's Director of Policy, John Kagia, to go over the regulations.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a privilege to be here supporting the rollout of New York's regulated cannabis economy. Having studied the emergence of global cannabis markets over the past decade, it is profoundly exciting to see New York truly breaking new ground with the regulations we're going to be discussing today. This package includes nearly 300 pages of regulations that cover a wide range of topics, dictating the rules of this new industry. The proposals you will hear about today and read about in the package represent months of hard work and dedication by the OCM staff, the control board, and countless stakeholders and community members who have offered their insights and expertise to help shape these regulations. Our goal today is to share with you a high-level overview of the regulations package and provide an opportunity for you to share some of your initial feedback. We know today's conversation is only the beginning, and we look forward to hearing more from all of you and the public as we embark on this regulatory process. The package of regulations includes several essential elements, not only for the licensure process, but also define the tiered market structure that is described in the cannabis law. New York's cannabis industry will offer consumers ample choice and will create protections for small businesses that ensure wealthy or well-connected do not dominate the market, but this is truly an accessible, competitive, and egalitarian market. From the moment that they apply for a license, we will require these businesses to focus on their impacts on the people in their community and on the environment. Some of these licenses, like cultivation licenses, will have different forms. Each of the italicized cells that you see in the supplier licenses table on screen is a separate license with a unique fee structure and unique authorizations. This diverse range of licenses will allow for a wide range of businesses to participate in this opportunity-rich market. The first major section of these regulations outline an application process for several of the different license types specified by MRTA. This includes nurseries, cultivators, micro-businesses, cooperatives, processors, distributors, and our retail dispensary licenses. Now, you may notice that there are two types of licenses I did not mention, the delivery license and the on-site consumption license. The regulations package does include provisions that will allow for our retail dispensaries to deliver cannabis to customers, but the regulations have not yet been developed for a standalone delivery license. We have not forgotten about these two license types, the delivery and the social consumption. We're still in the process of developing those regulations, and we will issue those regulations at a later date. The application process outlined in the proposed regulations will involve municipal governments. Municipal governments are really critical stakeholders to this process. In accordance with the cannabis law, they will be permitted to regulate the time, place, and manner of our licensees' business operations. And applicants for a retail dispensary or on-site consumption license must notify a municipality of their intent to operate a cannabis business in that jurisdiction. And municipal governments can submit their opinion to the board on whether it should approve or deny the application. The proposed cannabis regulations also protect certain special use areas, such as schools, grounds, houses of worship, and other areas that largely mirror the rules in place with the state liquor authority's method of doing so. And as you all know, protecting our public interest, protecting our public interest and our public health is a critical part to our regulations. Locals have control over the hours of operation of a dispensary, provided it does not limit the operations to less than 70 hours per week. The proposed regulations also include restrictions on what local municipalities can impose on cannabis businesses. For example, a local municipality is prohibited from imposing any special fees on cannabis businesses that do not apply to other businesses in the community. Essentially, you can't create special rules just for cannabis businesses. We think this will help protect our licensees from local laws that could make it more difficult for them to be successful and make it more difficult to effectively run a cannabis business. I'm now going to turn it over to Damien Fagan, OCM's Chief Equity Officer, to cover an overview of the social and economic and equity provisions in the regulations.
Thank you, John. I'll briefly highlight a few provisions in the proposed social and economic equity regulations. First, all applicants for licensure will be required to submit a comprehensive and measurable commitment to social and economic equity. Equity is the cornerstone of New York's cannabis industry, and we will only accept applications that demonstrate this commitment. Second, the proposed licensing regulations reaffirm our commitment to those most harmed by the disproportionate enforcement of cannabis prohibition. The first level of licensing prioritization will be for individuals who have been both convicted of a marijuana-related offense and have lived in a community disproportionately impacted by the enforcement of cannabis prohibition, what we call a CDI. The next level of licensing prioritization will go to all applicants who have lived in a CDI. A third and fourth licensing prioritization will go to applicants who meet the criteria of distressed farmers and service-disabled veterans. This prioritization can occur during the submission, review, selection, and issuance of licenses. Additionally, all social and economic equity applicants will have a 50% reduction, waiver, or deferral of their application and licensure fee. Much of the proposed regulations are a word-for-word reiteration of the cannabis law and should come as no surprise to anyone. I would just add, one of the things that we looked at a lot in terms of equity was making sure we didn't over-regulate this industry. Over-regulation is also a barrier to entry for small businesses and for equity participation. And so you'll notice that there's a lot of provisions in there that protect against those added costs. Key to achieving New York's social and economic equity goals and essential to building a sustainable, competitive, consumer-driven marketplace is the two-tiered system enshrined in the cannabis law. I'll turn it back to John to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Damien. So, central to the regulations we're promulgating here is this idea of the two-tier market, which is required by cannabis law. So the two-tier market is very similar to New York's alcohol laws in that it prevents our licensees from being vertically integrated. This means that a licensee cannot have an interest in the supply tier as well as in the retail tier. So to provide an example, a person would be allowed to both cultivate and process cannabis, as both of those functions are on the supply side. However, that person would have to give up their interest in any of those supply side licenses if they wanted to run a retail operation. Conversely, if somebody held a retail license, they would be prohibited from also owning an interest on the supply side. Holding a license on both sides of our market is not prohibited, is not permitted. We not only prevent people from having an interest in a business in both tiers, we go one step further in these regulations, additionally, to prevent suppliers from using gifts or incentives to unduly influence retailers. This is something that we've seen in other markets and in other sectors, and we think it's been really important to protect our operators from undue influence from other stakeholders in the supply chain. Prohibiting vertical integration will build a diverse range of homegrown cannabis brands that will reduce the barriers that entrepreneurs face when choosing to enter the market. It fragments our market, creating much richer opportunities across our supply chain. We're achieving the law's goal of prohibiting vertical integration by requiring applicants and licensees to tell us about their true parties of interest. Now, you may be familiar with our True Parties of Interest, or TPI framework. We've already begun to implement this framework with our conditional licensees to ensure their compliance with cannabis law. The proposed regulations further refine this framework and continue its implementation. The regulations require that all applicants and licensees tell us about all persons who profit based on their business success, even if they're not direct owners. Licensees will file these disclosures for every person, even other businesses, that is a true party of interest in their license. The regulations explain who we consider to be a true party of interest and what information that they will be required to disclose. We will use these disclosures to ensure that restrictions on ownership and interests aren't held. We not only prohibit somebody from holding an interest in both tiers, but we also limit the number of licenses someone can be significantly involved in within a tier. So, for example, in a retail tier, you're allowed a maximum of up to 3 licenses, both as a licensee as well as a true party of interest stakeholder in a licensee. We believe that this model will create an environment that allows small and medium-sized businesses, which we plan to license, to flourish. Once an applicant is successful and has been issued a license, then they can begin operations. The proposed regulations set guidelines for the operations of each license type and ensure that they're maximizing public health and safety. And you will see that public health and safety is a recurring consideration across these regulations. The proposed regulations include operational requirements to ensure that licensees, their employees, and their sites are protected from security threats such as theft. Our packaging and labeling regulations pertain to the packaging of products at retail, and while these regulations these regulations pertain to the product themselves, we'll be regulating the ingredients in products, what form they can take, and how they're sold to maximize public health. The regulations also include protections to ensure products are made in accordance with good manufacturing practice standards and are not in shapes that may be attracted to individuals under 21. In the event that a product does become contaminated or otherwise needs to be recalled, the regulations require licensees to create and test a process to report issues and recall products. So it's a closed cycle, and you can get products out if they need to be recalled. It's also really important to consider the environmental and sustainability impact of this industry. Our licensees won't only be required to protect consumers, they will be required to protect the environment. The regulations create a sustainable industry reflective of this moment and of the very aggressive targets that New York State has set with our sustainability objectives. The proposed regulations require licensees to monitor and limit their environmental impact. The licensing structure encourages outdoor and mixed light cultivation and does not force our licensees to use indoor energy-intensive facilities. We know that growing cannabis can be profoundly energy-intensive, and by incentivizing mixed light and outdoor cultivation, we're trying to bring that energy demand down. Our licensees will be required to document, implement, and maintain an energy and environment plan. And this plan will differ depending on the type of license, but will allow the board to identify and target specific actions that will reduce the industry's overall environmental impact, as well as help us start to develop and identify best practices within the industry on what's working so that we can deploy those statewide. We understand that addressing environmental impacts can be costly, and achieving true change cannot be achieved by a single licensee alone. These regulations are built with that understanding in mind, and we're looking forward to working very closely with our licensees to ensure the success of these broad environmental goals that we have outlined.
Thank you, John. So I know that was a lot of information. These regs are significant. They're substantial. They dive into all of these areas of concern. And this initial approach, this is the first filing. We anticipate loads of public comment. During this period is when we are going to be engaging with this body to receive and solicit your comments and feedback. The regs have been emailed out to you, but they've also been posted on our website for public discussion. I think you've also been emailed summaries to guide your review of these regulations. During this time, we are encouraging this body to identify the ways that they'd like to submit those comments back to the office for our review and consideration during this public comment period. We're going to spend the coming months coming back to you to solicit and review your feedback to determine what changes we need to make in the next filing. You can, in advance of this, I know Aaron will reach out and talk to you each about this, about how to best submit your comments if you have individualized comments, but also for the body itself to submit comments moving forward. The work does not end here. We've received quite a bit of comments in our regulatory packages in the past. We're really proud of the amount of comments we received on every regulatory package. We always talk about it at our board meetings because we're so proud of it. But we want to make sure that we get that continuous feedback from you all on this package as well, to make sure these regs are as strong as possible before they're finalized. So I'm happy to answer any preliminary questions now, but I know that there's a couple more packages to go through, and I know as well, there's quite a bit of review and reading that you all probably have to do to get through these regs.
Can I ask a question?
Sure thing.
Explain the thinking behind having the existing medical ROs wait 3 years to be able to get a license?
Yeah, so we don't want to explain is probably the word. There's a couple of considerations that went into the decision that I want to highlight that are all laid out in the regulations. The first being, of course, the fact that we are very sensitive to what market concentration looks like, what has happened in other states. We are additionally very sensitive to the fact that we have an existing medical program that we want to create a pathway for survival. Now, folks may disagree on how that survival looks, but we are pouring resources into a medical program that has not yet received those resources and that investment. And so, this is an initial draft regulation package, and so we look forward to the feedback from all stakeholders if this strategy to keep the medical program alive and to prevent market concentration on the retail side is one that could work. But generally, it's making sure that we provide there is a pathway, a requirement for the medical companies to participate in the adult use market. That pathway is presented with the considerations in mind that we keep the medical program alive, keep it distinct for time being, and then allow for that transition at the conclusion there. Okay. All right, so I want to turn over to Lila Hunt, our Deputy Director of Public Health and Campaigns, to provide an update on the proposed packaging, labeling, marketing, and advertising regulations that are also going out for public comment. So we'd also like your feedback on these regulations as well.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. The proposed regulations for Parts 128 and 129 pertaining to packaging, labeling, marketing, and advertising were approved by the board on June 1st and were subsequently released for a 60-day public comment period. In the spirit of multiple rounds of comments and robust feedback from stakeholders, the public comment period closed on August 15th. The office received over 730 total comments from over 158 unique commenters, and commenters were submitted from a wide variety of interest groups, including industry representatives, elected officials, private citizens, public health and medical associations, addiction medicine specialists, environmental stakeholders, media organizations, and some of the groups represented by members of the Cannabis Advisory Board, and of course with advisement from some of the agencies also represented in the Cannabis Advisory Board. Staff reviewed each comment and revised the regulations in response to these comments, and thanks the stakeholders for their robust feedback. These revisions now give licensees more flexibility when designing packaging and labeling and prevent cannabis products from being attractive to individuals under 21. Revisions further include allowing licensees to include more than one logo or brand element on a package, which allows them to co-brand with other licensees. Removing the requirement for a plain white background and black text on the front of the package, and allowing the cultivar or strain name and brand names that might reference other foods, candies, beverages, and more, so that those rules would not impact strains or businesses already known to consumers. The universal symbol was updated, as you see here on the slide. This limits it to 3 colors and eases the cost of printing additional colors, and the requirement for the universal symbol to specifically appear on the front of a package was removed, meaning it can appear anywhere on the package to allow flexibility, and we know that sometimes real estate on the package is limited. Revisions allow customer incentive programs to be used, permitted only if their purpose is part of implementing a licensee's submitted retail package sustainability program, such as a package redemption program. Similarly, the revisions made to the marketing and advertising regulations will help licensees by making the rules clearer and easier to interpret. Preventing marketing to those under 21 continues to be a hallmark of these rules. Rules were clarified to better account for types of advertisements like audio-only ads where implementing certain required warning statements might be challenging, and clarifications were made to the rules about advertising at or in connection with sponsored events. Revisions were further made to ensure advertisements are not misleading, such as prohibiting medical symbols and clarifying usage of terms such as organic, craft, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher. I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Chin.
Thank you to everyone from OCM for all your hard work on these regulations. I also want to express my appreciation for all of the staff who took the time to share this important information with the CAB members today. Now I want to again open the floor for comment from CAB members. As a reminder, this is just one of many opportunities that CAB members will have to share their thoughts and feedback on these regulations. Please keep your comments focused on the regulations. Now, do we have a member who wishes to comment?
Any updates on what's happening with the territories that have not been able to be processed for the licenses because of the lawsuit? And specifically, I guess, in the spirit of competition, a consumer-driven industry, what's going to be happening with that delay, and are there going to be any I guess, is any strategy in supporting those licensees that potentially may not be first to market.
Yeah,
that makes it very exciting.
No, I appreciate that, and you know, we're not going to discuss the litigation in this public forum, but to give clarification, there was an injunction that was assessed on 5 of the regions that for the card program. Licenses have not been issued in those 5 regions. We are going to, you know, as you've seen, we've advanced licenses in other regions across the state, and so, you know, we'll keep you posted as things move forward. But we'll continue to issue licenses outside of the enjoined areas.
Any other comments from the CAB members? Thank you, everyone, for sharing your comments. Now let's turn it back to Mr. Alexander to continue.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. So, again, a lot of information. You all have summaries. You've got the full documents. Dive in. We're going to have subsequent conversations, and to help facilitate those conversations, so it's not me up here talking to you and outlining I want to talk about the next meeting and the elections of a CAB chair and vice chair. So in outlining the function and duties of the advisory board, the cannabis law also include provisions for 2 leadership roles within this body, that of a chairperson and a vice chairperson. The role of the chairperson is an important one, as this person will serve not only as an expert member of the advisory board, but take an active role in the planning and preparation for these meetings and coordinate communication activities among their fellow board members. The vice chairperson will assist the chairpersons as needed and be available to fill in for the chairperson as needed. Both of these positions, the chair and vice chair, must be selected from among the voting members of the advisory board. After today's meeting, OCM staff will share a nomination form to all CAB voting members. This form will allow you to share some basic information about yourself, your background, and your vision for the CAB with your fellow members. Anyone interested in being considered for either the chair or vice chair position may also complete the nomination form. You're welcome to nominate yourself or another member if you think they would be a good fit for the position. Once the nomination period closes, OCM staff will circulate the full list of nominees along with their responses to the CAB voting members in preparation for a vote during our next CAB meeting. Please feel free to reach out to your fellow CAB members with any questions. We'll also be sharing contact information of you all here. You all have also your CAB email, which has been set up, so that will be the primary email in which we can facilitate this conversation. And we look forward to hosting this election during our next CAB meeting and working with the chair and vice chair to realize your vision for the CAB. Finally, we recognize that a lot of information, again, was shared today, not just to mention 300 pages of regulations, but all the updates that the office is working on. We understand that just like our community partners and stakeholders, all of you will need some time to carefully read, review, and digest these regulations. As part of the regulatory process, these draft regs will be published in the state registry, which will begin a 60-day comment period. You're welcome to submit comments in your CAB capacity using the same process available to all members of the public, as I stated. And those can be sent directly to regulations@ocm.ny.gov. But to help make that process easier, we've added some tips and resources on how to compose and submit public comments, which you can access on our website and will be sent back out to you. If you have a question about submitting your comments on a particular proposed regulation based upon your work outside of CAB, please check with Erin Lynch, our ethics counsel, and she can be reached at ethics@ocm.ny.gov. In addition to the traditional process of submitting written comments to written regulations, OCM will also be conducting a series of virtual and in-person events to support the rollout of these regulations. These events will be designed to help increase understanding of the regs and provide a platform for community members and stakeholders to provide OCM with feedback on the regs. It is envisioned that this body helps facilitate that public discussion and dialogue, and so we'll be inviting you to these public forums where you can also help capture the comments being made by members of the public. We're in the midst of planning these events, and we'll share information on each of them with CAB members as they are scheduled. We welcome any and all CAB members to attend events if you're interested, and will sincerely appreciate your support in amplifying information about these events whenever possible. As we wrap up today, we encourage all of you here with us in person, as well as those of you watching online, to stay connected with OCM where you can. Anyone can sign up for email updates on our website to be the first to hear news from the office, the control board, or the advisory board. We also encourage folks to follow us on social media at NYS_cannabis. That's NYS_cannabis. And again, we want to thank everyone for joining us today, both in person and virtually. We look forward to meeting again and hope to see many of you during our upcoming outreach activities in support of the forthcoming regulations. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chen.